Hello. No. Da, 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 da. Anybody pressed for time? Maybe just wait a minute or two. Can you hear me? Sound check. Okay. Good. What's that? Oh, really? Okay. Did you catch that, Jim? We're looking for a few more minutes. Okay. Good. Does everybody here know it's Sherry's birthday? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sherry. Happy birthday to you. Hey. What's that? No, you look perfect to me. So, well, there's no reason to tell you. I had no idea when we set this up as to how many people might show up. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate the fact that you're here. Yeah, well, you're welcome. You're welcome. What's that? I have the microphone. Yeah. Your hearing's as bad as Mick's. Can you turn it up a little? Get, if you don't mind, get the mic. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say what I have to say, and I've got some visual aids to use to try to get the point across. And then hopefully at the end, there'll be time for discussions. I haven't timed this. This is the first time I've done this. I was an elected official a long time ago, and I did some public speaking, but not about this particular subject. So you have to bear with me. I'm learning as I go. I hope, honestly, after this is over with, I hope I get another opportunity to talk because I want to talk. And I will get into that shortly. You know, I could do that as a way of introduction to everybody who's here. This has been a bit of a passion of mine for most of my life. And it started, I think it started when I had a paper in South Buffalo. And it was the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I'm delivering, 13 years old, I'm delivering, the world's going to end. The world's going to end 50 times a day. And I'm not sure how that affects somebody, but I suspect it affected me. And then I've done a number of other things. Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot my book. I was going to read you a part of the book I wrote, which is a way of telling myself I forgot something. But I wrote a book about the same subject as I'm going to talk about tonight. And I guess I'm started, because this is what I want to say. I start this. This impressed me. This is me now. You know, I'm 76 years old, had a heart attack, had cancer. And this was Wendell Berry. It came across my desk a long time ago. Hello, some more. Come on in, come on in. Have a seat. Yeah, more friends. Hello, Arlene. Hello, Debbie. Hello, Gary. Welcome, welcome. Anyway, and so I just set it up here because I've got more more of these to go through. And I'll just take this off and move it over. I got to put this back on my belt, Sherry. Intergenerational justice. I'm just curious, as before tonight, how many people have heard the phrase or the concept intergenerational justice? Just show of hands. It's great because I came across intergenerational justice, like I said, well into my time on spending on this subject. And when I came across it, I was really impressed because although I had been working for intergenerational justice, it was never so concise Intergenerational Justice. And I thought, as the author, what I read was, I picked up this book, it came online. It was $138 for about a paperback that big. And that, what it told me was, nobody's reading this book, you know, and it was written, I'm not recommending this book either. I read it, but it was written by German scholars, and it's very dry. It's just a whole bunch of German scholars. But the phrase stuck with me. And to the point that I let Sherry know 10 days beforehand that I was going to walk to DC. And I did. And I learned some things along the way which are really interesting to me. Simply beautiful country. It's gorgeous. I was walking directly into the sun because I decided to take Route 36 and just keep walking. So what I found was it's a beautiful country. There's a lot of friendly people here. And I also realized, especially afterwards, why Trump got elected. Because between here and DC, I can't tell you the number of small towns that exist that have been left behind. The infrastructure is falling apart, schools, the homes, the cars, they're very, very poor. I had no idea there was many poor people. And I'll talk about it a little bit later. But Trump comes along, and I'm not talking politics now. This talk isn't about it, but I understood that somebody who promised them, I will take care of you, that meant a lot to those people who were left behind. And unfortunately, at least from my perspective, I think they're going to get betrayed again. They're going to get left behind one more time. So anyhow, that's intergenerational justice. I have to follow a little bit of my phone. You have to excuse me, only because I haven't done this a lot. First time. A slight definition of intergenerational justice would be to eliminate existential threats to our children and to future humans. That's all that intergenerational justice is. So, and right now, and I'll get to these two later, for me, we have two existential threats. And it's CO2 poisoning, and I'll talk more about that, and the stockpiling of military-grade weaponry is taking place all over the world. And again, I will get back to that. I just wanted to, that is what intergenerational justice for me is about. So, and before we get into that whole thing of what's right and what's wrong, I thought it'd be a good idea to sort of set a perspective of where we are, and I'm talking we, backstep. At one particular point, I thought it would be, if I had a magic wand, it would be kind of like, leave our personalities out of this, mine, everyone else's. To me, what we're dealing with is a human problem, a very serious global human problem, two of them in particular. So an intergenerational justice was a pointer for me. And I started to say earlier that talking now came after, Sherry knows because Sherry has taken care of me for a long time, but I had cancer and I had a heart attack. And I'm 76. And I started thinking, I'm not going to be here, and if I want to talk, then I better talk. So that all led to this and why I'm here. This space and time is important to me too. It's like, where are we now? Where are we starting from? And this is the blue marble. It's our home. And this picture was taken by Apollo 17 from a distance of 18,000 miles back in 1972. And I thought, I had one of these in my office and one of me prominently in my office, and because I thought at the time, now, that when people saw this, when humans saw this, it would change everything. Wrong. That it didn't work that way, but it did for me. And there's if you've read about it, astronauts, it's called the overview effect. Anyone ever heard of that? Astronauts are coming back and they're changed. They're cognitively changed. And it's called the overview effect because they've seen that from a distance. Now, earlier in my life, and because of the cancer, I have to drink a lot of water. So excuse me if anyone sees my water. Thank you. Earlier, the overview effect was important to me because I understood What they were doing was what I thought everybody would do. And it may have affected me too, because earlier in my life, I was a tower crane operator. And I operated the tower crane on the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., which sits on the highest hill. The cathedral's high, and the crane sits above that. So, and tower crane operators work like crazy all the time, except if you're building a cathedral. What I did was I picked up a stone, I set it in place. It took an hour to mortar it in. I had an hour to do nothing but walk around on the crane, and I did. And so I think I got a little dose of that overview effect, because obviously from the crane, you can see Virginia, you can see Maryland, probably on a clear day almost to West Virginia, but no borders. There aren't any, you know, you're sitting up there. And so anyway, that may have had a partial effect upon my life. But that's the blue marble. This one, and I don't believe I have what I hoped for on this, but this picture was taken by Voyager 1, and it was headed out into deep space. Carl Sagan, remember Carl Sagan? The older ones I'm sure will, but anyhow, Carl got in touch with NASA and he said, turn it around, turn the camera around, take one more picture. No, we're gonna lose our battery life, we can't do that. He kept on, kept pressing them. And finally they said, all right, you know, so they turned it around. And this, I don't know whether you can see it from where you're sitting. And we had to put some silver on this to make it at least so that you could see it in the front row. That's taken from 4 billion miles away. And this is where we live. And Carl Sagan, he wrote a book called The Pale Blue Dot. And in it, he talked about everything that we've ever known, our entire history is taken, and he calls it a cosmic speck of dust. And it is. And to me, it's also part of, we're in this, all of us. Doesn't matter where you live on the globe, it's still you divide that dot up for me. And so anyhow, I found that to be an important part of my, whatever you want to call it. You know, I don't really have a name for it, but, and then, that's as far as space is concerned. I also have, as far as time is concerned, now this is going to be really hard to see. Again, I'm new at this and learning my ropes. This is a timeline. This is January, February, March, April, May, June, December, the month of December. So we took from 4.5 billion years ago when the Earth got started to today and crunched it down to 1 year. Well, that's where the whole thing got started. I won't go through this all, you can read it. But here we are, we show up at 11:30 on December the 31st. So that's how new we are, humans. And it gets crazier because down here at the 23rd hour, the 59th minute, and the 58th second, that's when we had our Industrial Revolution. And that is going to play again later, but it sets in time, you know, and everybody says, oh, you'll never change humans. Well, we just got here, we're just learning. We're learning the ropes, as far as I'm concerned. We're clever, we've done a whole lot of things, but as far as wisdom, you know, long-term thinking, as opposed to short-term, global as opposed to national, those are things that come later when you have to. And I'll get to that also. But that's the time, that's the space and time where we are for my, you know, not, it's factual. Everything I have here is a fact. I didn't make up anything. I'm not making up anything to try to get, I'm just presenting facts that are verifiable by anybody. You can all check the same thing. This here, I'm getting into now, we've set ourselves in place and time, realizing we just got here. Now I think we've got two very pressing things that we absolutely have to, if we care about future humans, if we care about our children, we have to do something besides what we're doing today. This right here, that thick line, that's called the Kármán lines. Anybody, I don't know whether you're familiar, it doesn't matter. That Kármán line is 62 miles up. Take you about an hour to drive, straight up. And they call it the Kármán line. It's unique because 99.49s in a 7, so 99.9997% of everything that leaves the Earth and goes into our atmosphere stops there. It doesn't go out into space. And right now, that line, every second, we're putting human activity, global human activity, is putting out 1,079 metric tons of CO2 into the 62. We live in an atmospheric tank. That's 55 billion metric tons of CO2. And we do it every day, over and over and over again. And somehow, the people who are in charge of our home think that's okay. And it's not. It's unsustainable. We're poisoning ourselves with CO2. We're poisoning our oceans. The world is getting hotter. I'm sure you all see it every day. You know, it's in the paper today. Last month, the hottest month. Last year, the hottest year. And to me, and I'm going to talk about it, we have to do something different, something that we haven't tried before. Because it's poison. And the next one for me, when I talk about existential threats that intergenerational justice is almost demanding us to take care of, this again, it's hard to see, this is global military spending. And we are loading up on military-grade weaponry. Everybody is. Today, NATO, you saw, I'm sure you read about it, they were pushed to up their military spending by another 5%. I mean, not another, up to 5% of their GDP. Well, we're focused on existing human activities, and the weaponry is to make us safe and to make our nation safe. But I ask myself, is that making the world safer for my children? Is it making the world safer for future humans? This happens every year. In 2024, same as the pollution. 2024, the pollution was more than in spite of everything we know. We released more CO2 last year than any prior year. And that's, you all know what we're advised, do recycling, buy EVs, all of that effort didn't trim it a bit. And it's the same thing with military spending. The people who are involved in the military-industrial complex, they have full-time jobs. This is year-round, all the time. It doesn't go anywhere. Military-grade weaponry has a 20-year expected life. Well, that's, to me, we need to pay attention to that. We can't keep doing that and expect it to turn out okay. That's from my standpoint. Let me get, and I know we have a lot of current strategies, and we're advised to pay attention to those strategies and that they will change things for us. I'll get to another slide right after this one, but this is currently what we do. We have national efforts, and right now, today, we're spending $1.7 trillion to work on CO2 poisoning. And they expect by 2030, 5 years from now, it's up to $2.7 trillion. So we're not talking about reducing anything. We're talking about spending more money to fix what we break. And that's one thing. The United Nations, they have I didn't memorize it all, but $3.72 billion, that's nothing compared to what we're doing up here. But the UN was really, the first human attempt to really operate globally. And a friend of mine back in Vienna, Virginia, Joe Miranda, he owned a pie shop below my office, and we talked a lot. We talked similar things, not quite the same, but Joe was a principal of a high school in Rochester. And when the UN in 1945, when that when that meeting in San Francisco was taking place, the city of Rochester flew flags from every nation down their main streets, in front of the schools, everywhere. They were so excited about the possible UN changing things, making us eliminate war was the goal. And that was, to me, the UN was an attempt to go global. And the people who were in charge at the time weren't ready for it. The presidents of nations weren't ready for it. So they ended up with a very poor document. You can't have countries with veto power. It would be the same thing if our Constitution, if you had states with veto power. It won't work. We'd have New York or somebody else ruling the United States. Well, they made sure that didn't happen, but they couldn't get away with it when they did the UN Charter. So one of the things that we kind of depend upon. This is the World's Wildlife Fund. I tried to find somebody that was unbiased. The World Wildlife Fund doesn't represent any political party. It doesn't represent any one nation or anything like that. And I know it's hard to read. I don't know whether you can read it or not. I could read it. I was hoping that somebody could actually read it for me, but I will. And it's no, as they say, no exaggeration. It is no exaggeration to say that what happens in the next 5 years will determine the future of life on Earth. We have 5 years to place the world on a sustainable trajectory before negative feedbacks of combined nature degradation and climate change place us on a downhill slope we can't recover from. Now, and I think part of from my end of it, 10 years ago, the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they said we have 10 years. And nobody does anything different. Now we're 5 years closer and they say we have 5 years. And I am one, I believe the science. All of our scientists are screaming. It's like they're standing on the front of the Titanic and they're screaming at us, and yet we still do the same thing over and over and over again. And we can't. To me, the options that we're given is do what you're doing now. Everything will be okay. I think part of the problem is that they can't figure out what we can do. And I've spent a lot of time on it, not claiming to have the answer for everybody, but we need another option. The options that we're working today, we're not getting anywhere. And we've got, there's a statistic, World Health Organization, 93% of our children are breathing toxic air, and we're adding CO2. So the trajectory it's unworkable, and it won't be long before our kids learn what unsustainable, what the word actually means. And the question could come back, when did you find out that we were all living unsustainably? Well, Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring in 1962. We've known for a while, and yet it only gets worse and worse. And for me, another option, and I know it sounds like, how are you ever going to get people to cooperate globally? I'm trying to say is, if we don't, our story is going to be a really short story with a tragic ending, because the earth heating up to where it doesn't support life, and we are life, what that means for us, what that means for all life on earth. And yet, I think that the idea is, what can you do about it? There's nothing we can do. And I've heard that most of my life, and people ask me, well, what can you do? What can you do? It may not be, there may be 1,000 paths to that, but we got to take one of them. And it won't come from the top. Leaders are meshed in, let me put one more. Those where I went back before and talked about the current strategy, those are the tools we're using today. They're old tools. They were created by past generations. And the two main things that we today are trying to deal with is poisoning, of CO2 poisoning, and military grade. CO2 poisoning just happened in my lifetime. If you put my lifetime, remember when we did that timeline? My lifetime would be a microscopic sliver. And in my lifetime, we have developed the problem of our relationship with the earth just came up. So we can't use the tools of the past. My dad, he was a tough guy, but common sense, South Buffalo common sense. He told me several occasions, if you're up a ladder and you have the wrong tool in your hand, get off the ladder. Go get the right tool, because using the wrong tool will only exacerbate your problem. And I find us to be in a similar situation, is that the tools that were handed when we showed up here weren't built to deal with the problems that the most pressing problems that we have to deal with. And what I would say to anybody who would be willing to listen, we have to create that tool. It's not here. The reason we can't fix anything is because we're not organized in a manner that will allow us to do that. Excuse me. We're organized as nations, and we have global problems. And what's happening is because we can't fix them, we're getting a lot of chaos all over the world. And for me, that's a breeding ground. When you can't fix problems, then we're going to end up with dictators and dictator wannabes, because there'll always be a hand in the air, and I can do it. If you just do exactly what I tell you to do, we'll take care of these problems. And it's not true. We can't take care of these problems. To me, if somebody has a different idea as to how we can get to there, because we have to get to there, how we can get to there before 5 years is up, I'm all ears. And I would drop this in a minute if I thought that there was something else that would be more effective. I can talk, Sherry will let you know, I can talk for hours, and I don't want to do that. That's, in a nutshell, I've shared what was inside, and I wanted it on the outside, and you've allowed me to do that, and I appreciate that. I also don't want to talk the whole time. I'm open if anyone has a question, a discussion, add to it, anything at all. I welcome it. If nobody does, I just sit down and try to go home or wherever we're going. If I prompted anything and we have a microphone, Jim, this is Jim. Jim, I can't say your last name if I tried, but Jim came at Fair Play, right? Yeah. To do this. He's taking care of the audio visual. We are live streaming this. There will be people who, Jim, I think you got a hand in the air right next to you.
It works. Okay, I want to know more about your journey, your walk. How I know that you had a sign that said Intergenerational Justice on the back of your cart. How did people react to that? Did they know what it meant?
You know, I can't talk about how they felt about it, but I can tell you that I got a lot of really nice interactions with a lot of people. Somebody coming running out of the house with a bag of apples. Somebody else, you need some water? You know, and I always needed water. So people were extremely friendly. I didn't get into, one guy pulled his car right in front of me and slammed on the brakes and all that kind of stuff. And he was pissed about something. But honestly, I couldn't tell you what he was pissed about. It had something to do with what I was doing, but it wasn't clear to me. But other than that one guy, I walked across country. I had a publicist at the time, and she said that probably 1 million people heard the phrase intergenerational justice for the first time. And I don't know what I expected to happen. You know, I thought that maybe it would be more than not a million people, but that the phrase intergenerational justice would do for other people what it did for me. You know, just it ups the bar for when you realize, and it's quickly on justice, thank you for bringing it up, but justice doesn't appear until after injustice shows up. There's no call for justice. There was no call for gender justice until people started to recognize, hey, wait a minute, that's just not fair. That's unjust. Then the next thing that goes up is we need gender justice. It's the same for social, it's the same for racial, it's the same for every justice that we quest. That we've, you know, humans have all of a sudden turned and said, we need justice in this area too. When I first read this, the first paragraph that George Tremel, not this, first paragraph on intergenerational justice, he said he thought it would become the leitmotif of philosophy. Leitmotif, I think is what it is. Anyhow, the main theme, you know, it's a music term, and it's the beat that you hear constantly, and that's what goes, and he figured that that's what would happen. I did too. I thought once we recognize intergenerational justice, that other humans would also put their hand up. You know, I want intergenerational justice because we have to have, if we don't have intergenerational justice, all the rest of our quests for justice don't mean anything because we're not going to be here that long. It's how we feel. When you think about it yourself too, most of our, you watch the news, talk, everything is about existing human behavior. That's what we're interested in because we watch the media. Our leaders, they want to win something. They want to, and I'm not saying everybody, I'm just saying the ones who right now are sort of dictating human behavior. There's no call for intergenerational justice. There's nothing about future humans. What are we doing? Our children. You know, the fact that 93% of our children are breathing toxic air, it's wrong. It's injustice. And it's intergenerational injustice.
When people ask me to try and explain to them what intergenerational justice is, I bring up the 7th generation, the Native Americans, and in making decisions in their lives and how they live, they think 7 generations ahead.
I know.
And how what they do will affect 7 generations.
Let's go back a little. Remember our, who was our council person? A man they drafted, he was only in for 1 term. But, what was it? Rafael Espinoza. Anyhow, Rafael Espinoza, he did a nice thing. He got me, after my walk, came back, and I got a proclamation from the City Council of Denver. And I had to go down there and I had to talk. And he introduces me, and he says that, Bob, here, he agrees with you. I'm like 7 generations. Bob's going way past that. And I didn't really think about it that much, but the fact of the matter is, I'm looking at what do we want, not what don't we want. This is another thing I would say is we're used to fighting what is. One of these, it could be this one. Is that Buckminster Fuller? When I read that, it's just much more succinct than what I can say. So, and he's, you know, a long-term thinker. Buckminster Fuller was a long-term thinker. It's don't fight what is. That's what we normally do. We fight what's here and we want to change it. And before I read that, I used to, in my own way of thinking about it, was what do we want? And it doesn't have anything to do with what we don't want. I've long, it has to be 40 years ago, sitting under a tree. I sit outside all the time. Most of you know I go to Sloan's Lake every day. But I sit outside under a tree and I'm going crazy. I'm going nuts. And it was like a conversation. What do you want? What the, you know, use some language. I've used it. What do you want? And inside of 10 minutes, I want to see an end to war and I want us to live sustainably. That's just a human thing. That isn't my personal life has been fine. You know, if you ask me what do I want personally, it's like I got everything I want. Well, I'm sitting right here. But on the core human thing, we have to do these two. It's, and it's not coming from me. It's coming from our children. Everyone knows that Greta Thunberg. I mean, our children are becoming active. And how long will it be before, what are you doing? What are we doing? What's the goal to me? Where are we headed? Is it just to live and die here, and not care what's behind us? Or is part of being human, and I know it is. I'm preaching to the choir here, because everyone here I know, and I know that you all feel the same way. I'm saying I'm trying to drop a pebble in the water. We need to do something different than what we're doing. And the idea that there's nothing that we can do, we have to stop talking like that. I think our self-esteem is really low right now because we can't fix anything. And people say, well, we got war. Yeah, what's going on? God, that's terrible. What's going on in Ukraine? And you can't fix it. Putting on top of that, thank you for still listening. We're the first humans to see the totality of human activity. The wars, whatever we're doing to the environment, we see it because our cleverness with satellite communications has given us this. It's in our hands. Well, there's a big difference between being an eyewitness and somebody who's hearsay. We see it. And I think that that's really taken a toll on every one of us, because you see it and then you went, well, what's going to happen? I don't know. The part that I'm not reading about is, it was called The Visitor. I wrote a story, and it was The Visitor. And this guy was a shapeshifter, master of all languages, so he could go anywhere. And they shipped him out of where his home planet was, travels for a long time, gets here. He drops in on us, only to observe. That's the only thing he's here for. He can't fix anything, he can't change anything, but he can observe. And it's a story. He sees us doing beautiful music, ballet, opera. He sees it all. And he also sees everything else that we do. And the other things that we do, he writes back. His mission is over now. He's been here for about a year. And he writes back. He says, such potential, unbelievable potential, but unbelievable destructive capacity. They're killing the surface, and they're killing each other over beliefs and resources. And he says, mission's accomplished, mission's over, there's nothing I can do. That's what they're going to do to themselves. And I wrote something on Facebook. Now, how would we feel if we came upon a distant planet? I keep looking like they're all still here. A distant planet with the dot. And you realize when you got close that these people are bombing the shit out of each other, and they're destroying the surface of the planet that they live on. Well, reverse. We're out of here. Let them be. Oh, I'm sorry. You have a question?
Oh, yeah. Am I right in thinking that this is such...
Hold it a little closer.
Oh. Am I right in thinking that this is such an important subject that it really should be, you should approach the politicians, and have you approached politicians?
I'm sorry. I was a politician, and I left my life behind after 9/11. Before 9/11, I always thought that we would be moving in the right direction. When 9/11 occurred, I lost that. And I got divorced. I was in Georgetown Hospital in a lockdown facility. I couldn't stop crying. Finally, I had a good psychiatrist. He said, you got a lot of work to do. Well, I've done a lot of work, but it hasn't, I'm nobody. You're sitting there, you're listening to somebody with no credentials, nothing except what it is that I think and what I can talk about. So the politicians, I'm reluctant, only because of the fact, and let me tell you why. I think we are the audience. I think people are the audience. I know them. They're so enmeshed. And that's part of our problem. Right now, we're thinkers. Everything that we've done, the only reason that we're even in this church is because we can think and we can cooperate. And right now, I think we're doing some really bad thinking. And the people who are so enmeshed in that thinking, if I mention, I think we ought to cooperate globally. Well, unless I get an hour to talk, thank you very much, old man, you go home. That's good. But there's 8 billion of us now. And I think that's where the power is. I don't think we should be trying to overthrow anybody. I don't think we should be trying to revolt or anything like that. I think we should be talking to each other about what it means to be a human today. We have some very, very serious threats. Wrong poster again. But, you know, that's the way I see it. 2 serious threats to all humans, and we have to do something about it. Or not. Yeah, I thought about it today. I think about this all the time. But anyway, I thought today, do we want to actually be the last? Do we want, on our watch, do we want our story to come to an end because of bad thinking? You know, it's kind of like, no, no, don't want the story to come to an end on our watch. And it doesn't need to. It will. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please. Stop me from talking. I got to drink water anyway. So,
I think I'm correctly interpreting 2 things you said. One is that you're here and you're talking to people because you want us to, you think we're the ones who can do something, not the politicians, not others. And then 2, I think I heard you say that I think I heard you imply that you think people want to do something, but they feel discouraged, they're frustrated, they don't know what they can do. So if you could wave a magic wand, what would be one thing that you would have everyone here do?
I didn't quite hear you all the way. I have a hearing issue problem myself. Can you
I
just...
also mumble. My dad yells at me for it.
Sherry, my wife, always translates for me. What was the question? You can go it again, one more time.
Okay. Sorry, I always
right.
mumble. My dad yells at me for
Really?
it all the time.
I'm going with your dad then.
I think I heard you say that you think we are the ones who can change this, not necessarily politicians, but like people are the ones who can
Yes.
change this. And I think I also heard you say that you think people hear this, they know about this, but they're frustrated right now. They don't feel like they can do anything.
Yes.
What would you have us do? Like 1 or 2 things that like everyone in this room could do
Make it really
tomorrow.
simple. And believe me, I understand the question. It's a difficult question to answer because what we're doing, what needs to be done has never been done by humans before. Another quick story, which I had planned on in, and maybe this will help you answer your question. In India, there was a method for hunting tigers that's now illegal. And what they did was they made a giant funnel. The wide end of the funnel might be 5-6 miles wide. The low end of the funnel, the small end, would be a tree with a guy with a rifle in it. At the wide end, kids on elephants, boys on elephants with sticks would enter a 1/4 mile apart. Tigers in the grass, they would know where they're sleeping. They'd get up, hear the noise, and move away from the noise and keep going. Now, the sides of the tunnel or the sides of the funnel were made with white cloth, super thin. Didn't want to have anything heavy to carry out. They'd string out the white cloth right down to the funnel. Now, a tiger at any particular time could rip that up and just be free. Tigers won't do that. They won't jump if they can't see where they're going to land. I think we're in a similar situation right now. Nobody can tell you what cooperating globally would look like. We have to trust ourselves, confidence, that whatever that takes, we can do that as humans. And there's a lot of deniers out there. Don't worry about deniers. We don't have time for that anymore. That's always where the debate is. You know, the oil companies say we need to do this, we need to do that. And I'm like, we're not going to get anywhere by debating. what we're doing. Sherry's got some cards. I had them made because I don't have any cards. I'm willing to talk anywhere that anybody can get me a chance to talk. If you say, what can you do? Take a card if you know anybody. If you know anybody who can do websites, who can do, we have all the tools. We're the first generation, first humans, not generations, first humans. They have the internet. We can talk with the whole world, right now. And what I'm trying to do is start something. I don't know where it's going to go. And nobody, like I said, I can't tell you what that'll look like, but we have to have confidence that we have to do something different than whatever we're doing. And I'm just trying to put that seed out. Human intelligence is located in, what is it now, 8.3 billion locations around the globe. You can't go and find human intelligence anywhere. It's between your ears, my ears, their ears, everyone else's ears. And I'm saying the level of intelligence that we are being told is the highest we're going to is too low. It's too low for us to survive. There's too many of us, and our weapons are too strong. Our pollution is too great. I mean, I'm open to any conversation with anybody if they have a better idea than that we need to cooperate with one another. First. And the magnitude of the problems that we face today are enormous. And they can't be dealt with by a little trickle, dibs and dabs. We need to do something we've never done before as humans. And to me, that's cooperate globally. Because you can't get either one of these ever unless you do. So, again, unless somebody comes up with something else, a magic drug we can all take it. Well, we haven't, but I don't know whether I've answered your question or not, but I've tried. Okay. Is there anybody else with a question? A comment, a response, a need for a card. So, yeah. Well, thank you all very much for coming. I certainly appreciate, one more.
Okay, I remember that you blogged while you did your walk, and tell everybody about the cows.
It's a rare talent. Okay, close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes. Just listen to the speaker. Close your eyes, please. Debbie. You can do that. I can do that. And thank you. Take applause any way you can get it. Cows will come. They come from, they'll get up wherever they are. They'll come over to the fence here. See, I've made all my kids have to deal with it. And they get really, really excited and they hang out. So while I was walking, I couldn't help. Anytime I saw cows, they'd all follow me down the road for a ways. So it was fun. It was fun. The walk was actually an experience for me that no regrets. I got a lot of advice from friends. Eileen's sitting right here. You don't have to, this is the morning that they're dropping me off. She's riding in the car with me and she says, you don't have to do this, Bob. You don't have to do this. I was going to do it. Once I made up my mind, I was going to do it. And once I made up my mind, I was going to talk. And I appreciate you being here because I was going to talk. And now I would like to talk some more. And I don't know how to promote. I know how to think about this and how to talk about this. But when it comes to promotion, I wrote a book. And like I said, I wish I would have brought it, not to sell the book, but just to read that passage out of the book. I didn't know how to promote it. So no one's ever read it. And I maybe 100 people, but it's still on Amazon, which amazes me. I thought that you'd have to have some kind of flow, but apparently they just keep it there. It's on Amazon. It's called Don't Drink the Water, A Citizen's Story. I wrote it in 2011. I just looked at it today. Excuse me, man. And at the time, people were hearing me in person to person. And most of my friends have actually talked to me at some particular point, and we've talked about it. But they told me that in order for me to write a book, I better tell a personal story because nobody knows who you are. So tell them your personal story, how you got to here, and then say what you want to say. So I'll give you, if you do read the book off Amazon, the first, I think, 10 chapters are how I got to think the way I'm up here now, why I did whatever it is that I was doing at the time. And then the 11th chapter, I think it's 11, don't hold me to any of this, but I transitioned with the story about the visitor. And then after that, the next 5 chapters are what I'm really trying to say and what I've been trying to say. That was in 2011. In 2001 was, the 2000, what's it called, 9/11. 9/11 took place. And before that, I had been basically the same person I am today, the same thinking, but no one to talk to. A friend of mine said, Bob, you're a priest without a parish. You don't have no church. You have nobody to talk to. And it was right. But I think part of what I'm here today, I'm very confident in an idea, not in my ability to express it. I think the idea itself is where I get any confidence at all, because I'm so, I don't know how to say it. This is what I think. And I think it's as deep as I go. And so learning and trying to figure out, okay, here's the way you think. How do you promote it? Well, welcome to the first attempt. You're all part of it, because I don't know how to promote. And that's a different skill set. But this is where I know how to start. And I would be willing, if somebody else came along and was better at doing this, see you later, go do it. And somebody, I always think somebody at some particular point, I don't know why there isn't a scream for this from people like Bill Gates and so many others that are trying to fix the world. It's like, if you're really going to fix the world, why should we rely on philanthropy? There's no guarantee that that's going to be around next year or the year after or whatever else it is. We can't rely upon something to fix what's wrong with us that doesn't come from here, and come from a great number of us. Just think about if the world all of a sudden, if humans, we did connect with one another and we all started to think about what it is we want. What do we want for our children? What do we want for future humans? And keep an eye on the clock. I'll put these two up against anything we want to talk about. We need that. They need that from us. We're the link in the chain. That's all we are, of a multi-link chain. And what's our responsibility? To me, and I don't blame there's no blame. I have no desire to blame anyone for anything. I think we're all in this together. And figuring out blame for me a long time ago was just sort of like, that's a nice way of shirking your own personal responsibility. It's not me, it's them. And I'm trying to say, at this particular point, it's all humans. Are you showing me the clock? Time. Okay. Any other questions at all? I'll tell you one thing. I'm not a promoter, but I did think that if we get this, if it turns out okay, I have no idea what this is going to look like. I would love to send it to TED or have somebody send it to TED Talks. TED gets a whole lot more publicity. I think this idea, not me, this idea is worth a TED Talk. What's that? I need somebody, let me tell you, I had my own career for the longest time. Jim's got to get out of here. Fair play, right? Yeah. I was in the insurance business. I was a consultant. I had a great job, a great career. I loved it. but I never asked anybody to deal with me. It was always word of mouth. I'm terrible at going to people. You should interview me on, I want, and it's kind of like, no. But if somebody else knew somebody, a contact, and said, you know what, maybe you want to talk to him. Hear what he's got to say. I would talk to anybody. I'm just bad at knocking on doors and say, in the insurance business, if you didn't get that, I'm out. If you didn't get that in the insurance business, you had to go in and you had to try to convince somebody to trust you. I could never do it. I didn't know how to get people to trust me. But if it comes from word of mouth, somebody says, you should talk to Bob McCormick. Fine, I'm good. You call him. It's just whatever that is. I don't know what that is. But anyhow, I'm getting a timeout from everyone. So this is it. I'm done. You heard my talk. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.